women auxiliaries of the United States Coast Guard celebrate their first birthday in uniform. Mrs. Roosevelt, flanked by heads of all the women's service organizations, takes the salute as the Washington unit parades past the White House. A year ago, these girls were in civilian life. Now they release more men for service at the front.
I don't know what ever possessed me if it wasn't that poster. And it said, the Woman of the Year is a spar. And I guess that's what really drew me. Women, you know.
I learned about the spars through the Evening Star newspaper over in Washington, D.C. I happened to be reading the Star that evening, and they had a picture, and it just looked so exciting. So I thought, I'm going to look into this.
I was the only spar working with approximately 250 young men. They treated me with great respect, like the sister they may have left at home, and it was a wonderful relationship.
My father had 2 girls. He didn't have a boy to send into the service. He was so disappointed. One day he had heard about the spars. He came home with the papers all filled out, just needed my signature, and he got it, and I was gone.
Women have served in the Coast Guard and its predecessor agencies almost from the very inception. The armed forces during World War II really needed more men in the front and in ships, and that's why they created the WACs, the waves, and the spars. With this history of diversity in the Coast Guard, it was very easy for them to give women many different roles and missions during World War II.
In regard to Dr. Stratton's motivation for joining the Navy's waves, she was clearly, like most Americans at that time, and wanted to do something for her country. At the time she joined the Naval Reserves, a fellow faculty member said to her, "Dorothy, you can't afford to do this." And her response was, "I cannot afford not to do this." She received a telegram to report to Washington, D.C. to meet with the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Russell Wacie, and she was offered the position to be the head of the spars. She oversaw the creation of a force from scratch that resulted in the commissioning of 1,000 women and 10,000 enlisted personnel.
Spars, women members of the Coast Guard, complete concentrated courses to qualify as radio operators. They march in review at graduation exercises at Atlantic City, New Jersey. Diplomas from Spar Commander Dorothy Stratton.
I was never given the opportunity to come face to face with Dorothy, but as far as we know, we thought she was the greatest. She was the one who named us. Semper Paratus, always ready. We were so proud of that name, and to think that this woman actually put it together.
In a letter that she wrote to Admiral Wacie, she said that Semper Paratus, always ready, is the motto of the Coast Guard. And of course that acronym SPAR spells out the word spar, which is an important part of a ship. She sold the use of that name based on the fact that it's the women who are going to be supporting the Coast Guard during World War II.
There are many jobs the Coast Guard needs you for. Each one helps to win this war. And then too, the skills learned today will mean better jobs tomorrow. You won't get to be an admiral, but you may be the admiral's secretary.
We've seen a number of times over now that it is very possible for women to rise to the highest levels within the Coast Guard. I think that we women all take great pride in knowing that it was those pioneers like Captain Stratton, like the many other spars, who stepped forward. We serve better today because we're reminded of their sacrifices. And I'm always pleased to be able to tell my counterparts in the other services that the Coast Guard has no restrictions for anybody.
Coming up!
I know some people didn't think women could do the job, but I think we've proven that we can do the job. As far as Dorothy Stratton, our leader, I think it's proven through time what a good job she did, and it's very evident with the christening of the ship in her honor, and I think it's wonderful.
I've worked with the company 31 years, and during those 31 years, I've worked on a lot of ships. But knowing that she was the first female officer, and the fact that she retired as a captain, that it means a lot to me.
Dorothy Stratton opened many doors for women throughout the job force, not just in the military.
I feel very honored to work on the Coast Guard boat, and I take pride every day in what I do.
Dorothy Stratton had to be a very intelligent lady to accomplish what she did in a man's world in those years, and I'm very honored to work aboard the ship named after her.
We were sisters. We were family.
Being a spar was one of the most rewarding things in my lifetime.
Coast Guard is like one big family. Do you think they would take me back? I would like to re-enlist.